Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Chof Amud Beis, starting with Chof Amud Aleph, 4 lines from the bottom. The Gemara now quotes a Mishnah in the 10th parak, Tnan Hasom. It states over there in the Mishnah, Lo ya'amoid odom b'rishus harabim. A person cannot stand in the rishus harabim, v'yishte b'rishus hayochid, and then bend over to the Rishus HaYachid and take a kli and drink in the other Rishus, the Rishus HaYachid. B'Rishus HaYachid, b'Rishus HaRabim, or vice versa. What's the concern? That if a person does stand in the Rishus HaRabim and drink in the Rishus HaYachid, or vice versa, so he may be apt, accidentally, to then bring the kli into the Rishus that he's standing on, whereby it's going to be a malach of hoitzah. Unless he's standing the majority of his body and his head in that rishus that he's drinking in, then there's not going to be concern that he's going to go back to then taking the kli to the rishus where he's standing. The Mishnah concludes, V'chein begas. And similarly, it comes to a gas. A gas is the threshing, the place where they squeeze the grapes, they press the grapes. In that wine presser there, it's permitted to drink wine without taking trumas and maasros. However, if a person takes the grape juice or the wine outside of the gas, then he's now automatically chayiv in trumas and maasros. So our Mishnah is stating over here that if he is going to be standing outside the gas and leaning into the gas, drinking from the kli that is in the wine press, then it will be chayiv trumas and maasros. It's only if roishoy veruboy is in the gas, even though he's standing outside, then it's permissible to drink without taking trumas and maasros. We're on top of Chof Amud Beis. Gabe adam hu omar de boy roishoy veruboy. In regards to a person, we see from this Mishnah that he has to have the majority of his body and his head on the other side. Gabe para mi ba'inin la roishe veruboy. But let's say a person is then feeding a para. Does the para also have to have roishe veruboy in that rishus? Let's say in the rishus hayachid, if he's going to be standing in the rishus harabim, oiloi or not? Says the Gemara, kol heicha de kon nakit mana v'lo nakit la. If he's holding the kli when he's then giving the animal to drink, but he's not holding onto the animal, then loiti boilach, then it's not even a question. That's going to be poshit. That's not going to be good because he may be drawn by the animal who then jerks back into the other rishus, and then he will also then take the kli into the other rishus. The boy roishe veruboy melagov. That for sure he needs both roishe and ruboy inside. That's poshit. If he's only holding on to the kli and not the animal, then certainly the animal has to be roishe veruboy. So what is the shaila? Ki tiboy lo heicha denakit mana v'nakit lo mai. When he's holding on to the kli and he's also holding on to the reins of the neck of the animal, then the shaila is, does the animal also have to be roishe veruboy into the rishus or not? What's the din? Omar lei. He said in Tinisua, let's prove from the following our Mishnah. Ubilvad shetei hapara roisha veruba mibifnim v'shoise. Our Mishnah states that in regards to the passing la beirois, you must have that the animal is going to be roishe veruboy. The para has to be the head and the majority of his body in order to then give him to drink. So there, the Gemara says, "My lav the nakit love and nakit mana." Is it not that we're talking about where he's holding on to the kli, and he's also holding on to the neck of the animal? And therefore, we see from here that you have to have roisha veruboy. Answers the Gemara, loy the nakit mana v'lo nakit la. Our Mishnah is talking about a case where he's holding on to the kli, but he's not holding on to the animal. And therefore, you cannot prove from our Mishnah the question that we're asking. Because again, we're asking if he's holding on to the animal and holding on to the kli, does he need roisha veruboy? Says the Gemara, v'chi nakit mana v'lo nakit la mishari. If he's only holding on to the kli and he's not holding on to the animal, would that be permissible? In other words, the Gemara is understanding at this point that if he's going to be not roishe veruboy, would that be permissible to then hold on to the kli? V'hatanya, we have the following brisa that seems to indicate otherwise. Lo yimale odom mayim v'yitem b'shabbos l'fi behemto. A person cannot fill up water to feed an animal, holding on to the kli on Shabbos to feed that animal. Rather, what he can do is he can go ahead and fill up a kli and then pour it into a trough in front of the animal so that the animal would drink on his own. So you see from this that if you're only holding on to the kli and not the animal, then it's not going to be then satisfactory. That's not going to be viable. Says the Gemara, Ha'itma Allah, the Gemara answers that this Bryce is not talking about what we thought before, that he's not going to be Roishay Veruboy and he's only holding on to the Kli and not the animal. Because this Bryce is talking about as follows, Omar Abayi, Hacha be'evus ha'oimeid b'rishus harabim, gavoya asar tfachim ve'roichav dalid. Here we're talking about there's a trough that is the dimensions of Rishus HaYachid. It's 10 tfachim high and 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim. The roishoy echad nichnas lebein hapasin, and the head of the trough, one of its heads, meaning one of the sides, is going into the daled pasim, the pasim laberois. If you take a look at the picture that we have on the left side of the margin, on the side of Rashi, that shows the diagram, what we're talking about, where you have the animal that is inside a Rishus HaYachid, and he has a trough in front of him, and the trough itself, which has the dimension of Rishus HaYachid, is then also entering to the Pasi Leberoyos. Gezerah Dilma Chazi Leila Avu, says the Gemara, that there's a concern that they made a gezerah for, that maybe he will see the avus, the person who's coming to feed the animal, who draws water from the well, and then puts it as he's going to then walk along the Rishus Harabim, but he's holding it, the pitcher over the trough. So there's a concern that when he's going to then bring the water to the animal in the trough, on the other side, he'll see that it's mekalkel v'asi l'tikunei. He'll see that the trough is damaged, and he'll want to then fix it. So what's going to happen? V'dara le ledavlo bahadei v'kol mafik mishus hayachid v'shus harabim. Then he's going to take the bucket that's with him, and he's going to then put it down from the shus hayachid to the shus harabim. So by putting the shus harabim, he drew it out from the well, which was in the Shus HaYachid, the Pasei Leberois, and then he's now taking it out, and instead of then putting it into the trough, he sees that the trough is damaged, where he goes and he wants to fix it, but then he puts down the bucket in the Rishus Harabim next to the trough. So it comes out that he's then going to do a malacha of hoitzah from Shus HaYachid to Shus Harabim. And therefore the Chachamim were concerned about such an event. So therefore that's why they said he cannot go ahead and go ahead and feed the animal in this way. So that's what the Bryce is referring to when the Bryce states over here that you can't hold on to the bucket and not hold on to the animal. Ask the Gemara, V'chi gai gavno mi mechayiv. In such a scenario, would he be chayiv? If you're telling me that he's going to take out the bucket from the pasei leberos, and he's going to then carry it, intending it to put it into the trough, he's holding it over the trough. So therefore, he would have taken it from the Rishus HaYachid. If everything was normal, then he would put it into the trough, and that would be fine. But instead, you're telling me that he sees that maybe the trough is damaged, whereby he puts down the bucket in the Rishus HaRabim. Well, when he picked up the bucket from the Pasei Leberois, he did not intend to then put it down in the Rishus HaRabim, whereby there's no akira in the malach of hoitzah over here. Says the Gemara, V'chi agavni mechayiv v'ha'omar Rav Safra, Omar Rab Ami Rabbi Yochanan, ha'mefanech ha'fotzav. If a person wants to clear his objects, mizavis l'zavis, from one corner to another corner of his room in the Rishus HaYachid, v'nimlach, and he changes his mind after he picks it up from one corner, aleim v'hoitzion, and he then brings it to the Rishus HaRabim, and he puts it down. Potter. Why? Shelo haisa akira misha rishon lekach. Because he did not make an akira at that moment. Because when he picked it up, he intended to put it on the other side, the other corner of the Rishus HaYachid. He didn't intend to take it out and do a malacha by putting the Rishus HaRabim. So therefore, he's going to be poter midiraisa because he did only a hanacha. He did not do an akira. So how can you tell me over here when he then picks up the bucket from the Pasig Lebeiros after drawing out the water from the Rishus HaYachid, if he puts it down, ultimately Rishus HaRabim, he didn't have intention to make an akira. He intended to pick it up, take the bucket, and put it into the trough, which is Rishus HaYachid. Elo, rather, zimnin de mesakin lo, v'hoder mayel lo. Rather, you have to say that sometimes you want to then mesakin the trough, v'hoder mayel lo, lay, so what's he going to do? He's going to then take the bucket and he'll then take it and he'll put it down. Once he then puts it from the trough, he'll put it in the Rishus HaRabim. Then he'll take it and he'll pick it up from the Rishus HaRabim afterwards, after fixing the trough, and then putting it into the trough, which is a yachid. So then he does intend to make an akira and hanacha, which is a malach of hoitzah. So there, the chacham made a gezer, and that's what the Bryce is talking about. Ike da amrei, the Gemara now brings another version. There are those that say, Gabe Adam, hoka amrinan, the sagili roshav erubai. By a person, we say it's sufficient that he be situated where the majority of his body and his head is in the rishus that he's drinking from, even though he's standing in the other rishus. But gabe para misagi la b'roshav erubai oiloi. But in regards to an animal like a para, is it enough that the para has the majority of his body and his head in the other rishus to drink or not? Here the version is that where he's holding on to the kli to then give the animal to drink, and he's also holding on to the animal, that's not a question. The sagi la b'rosh v'ruba, that's for sure pashut that rosh v'ruba was enough. Ella, the shaila in this version is a kidi boy loch the naki man v'lo naki le mai. If he's holding on to the man, he's not holding on to the animal. O malei, he said the tinisua. Let's bring a proof from our Mishnah. The Mishnah states that providing that the animal, the para, is roishe v'ruboy inside of the pasi lebeirois, then you can go ahead and drink. So we see from over here that lachara, says the Gemara, my love, the nokit mana v'lo nokit lo. Here the Gemara's version is that, is it not that he's holding on to the mana and not holding on to the animal? And therefore we would have a proof that indeed, that it's sufficient to have Rosh V'Ruboy. Loi, says the Gemara, the Nokit Man V'Nokit Lo. He's holding on to both the animal and the Kli. V'Hochinami Mistaber, and it's also Mistaber to say that he's holding on to both the animal and the Kli. The Nokit Man V'Nokit Lo Mishori, because if he's only holding on to the Kli and not the animal, would it be permissible? The Hatari stated in the Brisa, Lo Yemale Odam Mayim V'Yitein Lefnei Behemtoi. The Brisa states that you cannot fill up a bucket of water to feed the animal, but rather you have to pour it into the trough for him to drink. So you see over here, Lachara, that from this Brisa, it's going to be a problem to hold onto the Kli alone if you're not holding onto the animal. Says the Gemara to reject this proof. Ha itmar Allah. Behold, it's stated on this brisa. Omar Bai. Hacha be'evus ha'oime b'rishus harabim gavoy asar tfachim v'rochav arba v'roisha nichnas leben hapasim. This brisa is talking about where the trough is indeed the size of his rishus hayochid, 10 amos high, 4 by 4 amos, and therefore he takes the bucket and he wants to then go ahead and bring it over the over the trough. So he's taking it from the Pasi Lebeiros, where he drew the water, which was a Rishus HaYachid, and he's carrying it over the trough, which is permissible in itself. On that, they were concerned, they made a gezerah. The zimnin the chazi le'evus the mekalkel. Sometimes he'll find that the trough is damaged, and he wants to then fix the trough, what's he going to do? He's going to take the bucket together with him. He's going to put it down. He's going to put it down in the Reshus HaRabim, and therefore he'll then make a hotzah from the Reshus HaRabim. The Gemara says, in this case, would he be obligated? Would that be in Mocha of Deraisa that they should make a gzeira about? Omar Rav Safram or Be'ami or Rabbi Yochanan Hamefane Chafotza Mizavis Lezovis V'nimach Aleim V'hoitzion Potter. If a person wants to then move objects from one corner of his Reshus HaYachid to another corner of Reshus HaYachid, and then after picking it from the Reshus HaYachid, he then changes his mind to bring it to the Reshus HaRabim, he's going to be potter because the akira that he made was not with the intention of doing a malacha by bringing it to Reshus HaRabim. He changed his mind afterwards. And therefore, it cannot be that they would make a gezeira in such a situation. Rather, you must say that gezeira that they were talking about in this brisa is that he would look to see that there's a damage in the trough, and thereby he'll want to fix it. He'll put the bucket down in the Reshus HaRabim. After fixing it, he'll then pick up the bucket, intending to pick it up. It certainly was an accident. It was a malacha that was b'shogi, but he picked it up, forgetting that it's Shabbos, and he puts the water into the trough. And thereby it'll be a malacha d'oraisa of hoitzah. So therefore the Chum made a gezeira. The Gemara now wants to bring a proof to the first of the two lishonos. When the Gemara had asked a cow, if the cow is roishe v'ruboy in the reshus that he's drinking from, is it sufficient, is it satisfactory to only hold the kli and not the animal? Toshma, let's bring a proof. Gamal sheroishe v'ruba mibifnim. We're talking about where the gamal, the camel, has roishe v'ruba inside of the dalid of the pasei leberois, and saying over here, oiv sin oisor mibifnim. You can go ahead and feed the animal inside. Now take a look at Tosfos, because Tosfos points out that we're talking about the classical oivsin, that oivsin means that you put so much food into the animal that you make his innards like a trough, like an avus, the lashon of oivsin, in order for them to be filled up with so much food that when he goes into the desert, there's not a concern that he won't have food. He'll be able to have several days of food based on the amount that you're feeding him now. We can't be talking about that, because that, the Gemara is saying, would be, the Gemara in Shabbos says that's also. It says Tosfos, Hi oivsin lav davka. It's not davka that we're talking about oivsin, that we force feed him all the way to the point we're making his innards like an avus. Ele kloimer mal'itin. What it really means mal'itin, where you put food down his throat to the point where he could still spit it up. That's mutter, says the Gemara in Shabbos. This nan perek basa de Shabbos. Ein oivsin es hagamal ele mal'itin. Al Kopanim, we go back to the Gemara, and the Gemara says, let's bring a proof from the Gamal. Sheroisha ruba mibifnim, va'oivsin oisam mibifnim. So even though his roisha v'ruba is bifnim, you can go ahead and oivsin v'ha evus kemanda nokit monim v'nokit leidamya. Here we're talking about certainly where he's holding on to not only the kli, but he's holding on to the animal. Says the Gemara, v'kami boinon roisha v'ruba, and you see that you need roisha v'ruba even though you're holding on to the animal also. Omar Rav Acha, so you have a proof that when it comes to the shaila of the animal whose roisha, does he have to be roisha v'ruba? And we're saying in the first sad of the shaila, I want to correct what I said before. Here we're talking about where you're holding both the kli and the animal. So the shaila is, does he need to have rosh haru when you're holding on to the kli and the animal? From here you see that you do, because being oivsin or malitin requires that you hold the animal down to feed him. So therefore, we have a proof l'chara that rosh haru is necessary. Rav Acha bar Rav Huna Rav Sheshis, he is doiche the proof. Shiny gamal hoyel vitzavoroi oroch. A gamal is different because the gamal has a long neck. So therefore, even when in a situation, it would need roishoy v'ruboy, right? Therefore, that's why we have a case over here where he's going to be holding both in the animal as well as the kli. You will need Rosh Haru because the gamal, he has such a long neck that he can otherwise go into the other rishus. So you have no proof from here about a regular situation, whether a para would be required to be Rosh Haru. Toshma, let's bring another proof. Behema, this time the price is behema, not a gamal. Sherosh v'ruba mibifnim, oifsin oisa mibifnim. Here it says that you can go ahead and feed the animal, the behema, when it's inside of the dalid of the yumdin in the pasid lebeirois. And here, lechara v'ha avus kiman denokit mana v'nokit la. We're talking about where you're oifsin the behema, so thereby you're holding the behema while you're holding the kli. And here we see that it's Rosh Haruboy. The Kabbalah Rosh Haruboy. So we have L'chara proof, a way to then prove the question that we asked before. If the animal is indeed being held, does he also have to have Rosh Haruboy? Answers the Gemara, you have no proof. Because my behema from this brisa, nami diktani, what is it talking about when it says behema? Gamal. It's also referring to a gamal. Ask the Gemara, but you have a different brisa that says gamal. V'hatanya behem, v'hatanya gamal. One brisa says behem, one says gamal, which is mashma that the brisa that says behem doesn't mean a gamal. Answers the Gemara, mi degabe hadaditanya. Were these two brises taught in the same base measure? They taught together. So one Tana taught behem, one that taught gamal, but the one who taught behem also meant gamal. Tani nami hochem. We also have a brisa that supports this. That it's a gamal that's unique, that needs to be rosh v'rubai when you're holding it. Rabbi Eliezer oiser begamal hoyil v'tzavara aruch. Rabbi Eliezer says it's oiser to be oifsin the gamal. Why? Because since it has a long neck, therefore we see from here that the gamal is unique, and therefore if we said before in the brisa that the gamal has to have rosh v'rubai, would not be a proof to a para.